So this hasn't been the best week for Xbox, and unfortunately it doesn't look like that's going to stop anytime soon. This is something that I'm not happy to report, and I know some places and some people were saying, oh, well, it's not a real big deal, that there's more to the story than this. But the problem is that we know Microsoft and what they're doing right now. They're trying to penny pinch wherever they can to make money. But the problem is you have to spend money to make money. And to me, it just never feels like Microsoft is trying to support their hardware or anything like that. They don't advertise it. They don't even really advertise Game Pass. They try to fit Xbox into this hub that it doesn't belong. It's like a square peg in a round hole. And so they pivot, and now that's why they push the cloud so much, right? Because even at the FTC trial, they're talking about not really investing in the cloud and things like that. But because Microsoft's own vision is cloud and AI, suddenly that has to fit what Xbox is doing, and that doesn't really add up, right? Like AI, trying to pump out stuff and fire people and use AI to make increased profits doesn't work. And Microsoft's going to find out that there's going to be pushback on all of this stuff. And it's unfortunate to say the least, but, I have to kind of look at this and shake my head. It gets even worse, guys. Yeah, Microsoft is giving yet another price hike. This time it's hitting game developers with, they're raising the price of the development kit. So development kits are what Microsoft or what any game developer uses to create games. And yeah, there's a little bit more to it than this, but anyway, game development is a business that's only continued to get more and more expensive over the years, with parts of that cost coming from the price of development kits, specialized hardware, and studios need to in order to build games on consoles such as the Xbox Series X and S and the Sony's PlayStation 5. Now those kits are getting more costly on the Xbox side of things, with Microsoft hiking the price of its development kit from $1,500 to $2,000. That's a 33% increase and an extra $500 that publishers and developers will have to pay for every kit that they buy. The news report came in from The Verge, which caught wind of an announcement about the price hike that was recently sent to Xbox developers. The adjustments reflect macroeconomics developments, the firm said in its memo. We remain committed to providing high-quality tools and support for your development efforts. Now, we know for a fact that this is not necessarily the case now, that anytime they're raising the prices on stuff, it strictly has to do with the 30% that Microsoft is forced to make in terms of the ability to make money. So yeah, they have to have 30% profit. That is incredibly difficult to have, and we're starting to see exactly why this is turning into such a quote-unquote shit show for Xbox. And again, this is going to be something that is going to be difficult for anybody to do in the industry. So Microsoft probably won't be able to reach that goal. And then what you're going to see is what's going to be Microsoft's end game after that, right? Like that's going to be the big problem, with all of this stuff in the future, is what's going to be the end game. How are they going to fix this? It is a big problem to have. You know what I mean? It really is. So notably, the development kit price increase comes just a month after Microsoft rose the price of the Series X and S consoles, which a lot of people attributed to tariffs, but those weren't even really enacted. And so now we know that, again, they rose those prices because they got to reach that 30% mark. And months after the consoles and the accessories and games got a bump in earlier in the year, it's also been introduced weeks after Game Pass Ultimate got a 50% hike, and after Game Pass got a large revamp overall. According to this, Jez Gordon recently wrote, the adjustments made to Game Pass can arguably be explained by an attempt by Microsoft to fund and foster more successful periods of business, like the spring-summer 2025 quarter. All signs point to an implementation of a price hike, largely being a response to some of the things going on in the world, but now we know that that's not the case. As for the growing cost of Xbox consoles and development kits, though, all signs point to their implementation largely being a response to them trying to make this 30% back up. And again, this is a $4 trillion company. Microsoft is reportedly planning to move some production out of China, which would help, I guess, with a little bit of this stuff. But again, when you have razor thin margins, you have to do what you have to do, I guess. As for when the price hike is going into effect, the new cost has reportedly been in place effectively immediately, meaning that all new XDK kits purchased from Tuesday onwards will be $500 more expensive. That may not seem like much in an industry where millions and millions of dollars are made, but for large studios that need many of these dev kits to develop titles, the cost will certainly add up. It's also going to affect smaller indie developers that lack deeper financial reserves that big publishers provide, potentially making it harder for them to bring their titles to Microsoft consoles. Ultimately, it's very unfortunate news for developers, but, I will say this, and I'm not going to, this doesn't really cover Microsoft or, absolve them from doing things, but what I will say is ID at Xbox does loan people, I think they loan people 2 dev kits, and for certain games you can switch your Xbox console to a dev kit. Now it's not the same, because when you're doing an actual dev kit, it has twice the memory, and then you gotta optimize and stuff like that, so it would be easier to do on an actual dev kit. But my big issue with Xbox is it's a situation where Microsoft has this problem where people don't trust them, and then stuff like this keeps coming out and leaking out, and you could tell that it's like some unhappy person working at Microsoft that's leaking this stuff out, and I can understand why they're unhappy. So Microsoft was already, Xbox was already in danger of not being able to keep up and get the games that like PlayStation does and things like that. It's already been a problem. So can you imagine, now we're in another situation where this continues to happen. Now on PlayStation side, they loan people, developers, dev kits. So it's not necessarily a same type of situation. I'm not sure about the charge, but if you look it up, you can see that they loan people and developers the dev kits. So that's quite a bit different situation than what's going on with Microsoft. So, again, we keep seeing stuff like this happen, and I don't think it's a good look for Microsoft at all. And then, we keep continuing to hope that something changes down the line. We need to see something change, because you're raising prices for the fans, you're raising prices for the developers, you're doing all this stuff, and is it really going to help you in the long run? It's like killing your brand more than anything. That's like a really unfortunate thing to see. It's like they're really taking it out on the hardcore by doing all this stuff. Listen, I think Game Pass was a tremendous it was really a tremendous value, but it's not the value that it once was anymore because of the price increase, and it's like that affects the hardcore that are going to pay that no matter what. They could have raised it to $40, and there's probably millions of people that would have just still taken that and paid it. Microsoft talks about their next console, and how it's going to be this premium thing, and it's probably going to be over $1,000, and there's still going to be millions of people that'll pay that. Now maybe Microsoft only has they probably, in my opinion, want to get out of the traditional kind of hardware space, and so you offer something that some exorbitant price, and you're not taking a loss on it. So if people are willing to pay $1,000 or $1,200 for it, then you let them. Right, but you're not going to capture any type of the market that way, and that's the really unfortunate part of all of this. Microsoft is really kind of seeing, taking advantage of these hardcore fans that stuck with them for a very long time, and that's the really, really bad part about this. And now you have probably the small developers and things that are, paying the price. And that's really unfortunate too. Even the big developers, I mean, are they going to really want to pay that much more for all of these things? I'm not sure that that's what they're going to want to do. That's super unfortunate. And again, it's a bad look for Xbox. You can't really say anything else aside from it's a bad look for Xbox. And that's something that us as fans, we have to kind of look at ourselves. And I think, as fans, we're the ones that are going to have to say, okay, well, I might have a lot of games, but I got to break away from this toxic situation. Xbox has become quite toxic, and that's unfortunate to say the least. So I'll link this. You guys can check it out. It's just insane to me that Microsoft is making it harder for people to buy their platform. They're making it harder for developers to make the games for it, and yet they're trying to tell us they're all in on making more hardware and stuff. Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up, and it's really unfortunate. But let me know what you all think. I'll link this in the description. Thanks so much for watching. Rack 'em up. Crap Gamer out.